left off talking about the 5 tenets of the whole Hope campaign, as well as the 5 tenets that uphold or are the foundation of the practice of Hopeology. And I want to take some time and go over each of those now. As we started off and talked about that the first tenet is hope. And the acronym for hope that we use, hope stands for helping others practice empowerment. Helping others practice empowerment. Now you may say, okay, well, what exactly does that mean? Helping others practice empowerment. Well, we wanted it to be an action word, because when we're talking about hope, we're not just talking about, wishful thinking or positive thinking or crossing your fingers and wishing upon a star or anything like that. It is hope in action. And when we say helping others, so we understand that it's not just about ourselves, but this hope is something that we can share with others and practice, which brings in the practice of Hopeology, and then empowerment. And that means to be given the tools in order to become hopeful as well as share hope with others. So our tenet number 1 is helping others practice empowerment or hope. And then tenet number 2 is hope for self. Hope for self. So now we're talking about how we must be hopeful ourselves. And that's one of the things that we look at in the practice of Hopeology. The very beginning, we begin with self, because you cannot give what you don't have. In other words, you cannot help others practice empowerment unless you are hopeful yourself. So we spend time dealing with self and dealing with becoming more hopeful by learning how to think hope, and that is to train your brain now to not think of negative things, but to think of positive things, or what we will find out is hopeful things. And we'll spend a lot of time talking about what it means to think hope and some of the components of thinking hope. And then we also learn how to speak hope, because out of the abundance of your heart, the mouth speaks. So as we begin to think hope, then we begin to speak hope, or there's a whole language of hope that can help us to remain more hopeful. And first of all, to become hopeful, and then to remain hopeful. So the think hope, the speak hope, and then there's a component that we'll talk about and go over in detail, and that is how to imagine hope. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that through the practice of Hopeology, we utilize both the right brain and the left brain. And the right brain is the more creative side of our brain, and then the left brain, or the left side of the brain, is more analytical. And that's where we, the thinking part, rational and things of that nature. So through the practice of Hopeology, we use both sides of the brain so that we can be whole in our hope. So we use that creative side, and we learn how to imagine hope. And we're going to talk about that as well as how to take hope breaks and envisioning, and all of that is a part of the training of the practice of Hopeology, because we have to become more hopeful ourselves as well. With that particular component of hope for self, we look at how to rest in hope, and that is a thing, how to rest in hope, and we'll talk about that, how to move from despair to hope. So we deal with self in the practice of Hopeology. And we really, really give the tools and the training, the empowerment, the things that you can do to anchor your hope. Because first of all, after, learning about what the acronym of hope is about, the first thing is hope for self.